Alrighty, so lesson 2, game design. Okay, today's a non-computer day. When you're creating a game, you need to plan. And I have quite a few plans from scratch that have been turned in. They were okay. They're a good start, a good sort of beginning. The projects were really good. There were some that I thought were outstanding projects. You guys did really well on those. I haven't marked them all. You do need to remember to consider all possibilities. That's really important because a gamer's going to try and mess up your program, right? They're going to do something that you don't anticipate. So you really need to consider all possibilities. And the key to all this is to think big, work down to details, and then write small pieces of code, test them, and expand the program. And this is known as stepwise refinement. And I sort of say that with emphasis because why? It's important. Stepwise refinement. It's important. What it means is you start with a big idea. Okay, here's your big idea up here, right? And you narrow it down, right? And then you start working on details, and then you take those details and you add them all together, and you end up with a big project. Okay? Think about building a house from scratch. Okay? You build your house, you have an idea of what you want it to look like, right, Lance? Okay. And then you get into, what do we want the bathroom to look like? What kind of tile do we want? What kind of fixtures do we want? You start dealing with details, and once you have all that plan in place, then you start putting things together, and you end up with a big project, the house. Okay? That's what stepwise refinement is. When you build the house, does the same person do all the different parts? Some people might if they're very handy, but generally you might bring in an electrician, then you bring in a plumber, and then you probably have to bring in the carpenter first, right? You might bring in the roofer later. Different people come in and do different parts. Same thing with game design. Different programmers do different parts, and they need to have a blueprint, what the plan is going to be. Okay? For us, I know it's really hard for me to get you to do that because the programs are so small and they're so basic, if you'll pardon the pun, but planning is really important. Okay, so here is a simple guessing game. Very, very, very basic. Player gets 10 chances, a random number is selected from 1 to 20. Player gets a chance to guess whether the next number is higher or lower. Whoop-de-doo. The second number is selected, and the number of wins or losses recorded. And after 10 rounds, the results are shown. So that's sort of how it's going to work. Is that a plan? Well, it's an idea, right? It's sort of the plan. It's the big idea kind of thing. Here's what it would look like. Oh, yeah, that's right. I can't do this.
I'm going to guess higher.
The number is 9. Dakota's going to guess higher. Now, I've got it set up so that 1 is equal to higher and 2 is equal to lower. So in other words, what I do is I type in the number 1, and that's my guess, and the next random number is 17, and Dakota wins. Nathan, the next number is 11. Higher or lower? 15. Sorry, man, you lose. You're not very good at this. Any strategy involved here? Really? No strategy at all? Okay, the next number is 15. Mitchell, go ahead. Why? Really? Is that good strategy? Not good strategy because how come? It's 1 to 20? How many numbers are there from 15 to 20? Not very many. 5, I believe. Right? Now we don't have. I don't have it set up so that it works if you're equal, right? But we could play this game. How many rounds do we get? 10 rounds. Okay, I'm just going to keep guessing. 1. I've got wins and losses 4 and 1. What should they add up to? Lance. Yes. What should the wins and losses add up to, Lance?
Well, they add up.
They add up to 5. What should they add up to? 10. Thank you, Nick. How come they should add up to 10? Because there's 10 rounds. What did I not program? I didn't program There's probably some ties in there, right? We didn't look too carefully. There's clearly a bug in the program. I haven't debugged it yet. Okay? I know I didn't deal with the ties. Okay. So that's sort of what we're trying to get towards, right? The next step is to come up with what I like to call pseudocode. Go ahead, Caleb. Okay? And pseudocode is simply coding without syntax. Okay, without the semicolons, without all the statements, it's just thinking in English what it's going to look like. Here's what it would look like. We would need a 10-guess loop. We've talked about loops in Scratch, so you've seen that. I need to get the random number. I need to display it. I need to get my guess, whether it's higher or lower. I need to get the second random number, I need to display it, and then I need to do my check. If it's higher and the guess is higher, well then I win. And if the second number is lower and the guess was lower, then I also win. And if it's anything else, then I lose. Right? And I probably missed one here. I should probably have print, win, or lose. And then I go to my next round, and then when I'm all done, I need to display my results. How could you guys do this game in Scratch, do you think, right now? You should be able to. I've taught you everything you need to know. You should be able to do it. You guys know how to do a loop. You know how to get random numbers. You know how to say things. You know how to input things. You could do everything here. You know ifs from Scratch. You could do this game. Okay? So what do we need to learn how to do? Well, loops, random number generator, how to print, how to say things, how to ask a question, if statements. That's really about it, isn't it? What do we know in Liberty Basic already? What have we done? In the hand in one with the program, the payroll. You know how to print, and you should also know how to get input. So all I really haven't shown you is loops, random numbers, and if statements. We're going to do those over the next few lessons, and a few other things added in. Okay? So we're going to be doing that over the next few lessons so that we can make something like this. Okay, so now we're going to expand that little simple game into a game called In Between. And you have the rules right in front of you. We're actually going to play a few rounds right here. Okay? So you're going to have 2 cards dealt to you, and I took my cards home to play it a little bit to get familiar with it, and I think I left them at home. You're going to have 2 cards dealt to you. You must make a bet as to whether the third card is in between those 2 cards. You can bet anywhere from 0 to your current bankroll. What would be your bankroll? What would that mean? No, like, what would it mean, Nolan? How much you have in your wallet, right? How much you're willing to play with, kind of thing, right? If the third card is in between the first 2, you win the amount that you bet. So if you bet $5, you get your $5 back, plus you win another $5, right? If the third card is outside the first 2, you lose your bet. Lose your $5. If the third, now what are the other possibilities? Well, if the third card matches one of the first 2 cards, you lose double your bet. Does that seem fair? Is that a possibility that the third card could match one of the first 2? Yeah. What's another possibility that could happen? It's right here. If the first 2 cards are the same, how are you going to be in between? You're not, right? So how does the game work if the first 2 cards are the same? Well, then the game changes to is the third card going to be higher or lower? The problem there is that the third card could do what? It could match, and then you would lose triple your bet. You've got to think about all the different possibilities. Okay? Each game costs 1% of your initial bankroll to play. It's called the ante. That's how much it actually costs to play. Okay? Because the casino's got to make some money. Okay? So those are the rules. You've got them in front of you. Okay. Who wants to play? Okay, Mitchell. I'm going to deal you 2 cards. You got a 3 and a queen. How much are you going to bet that the next one's in between? $20. Big spender here. Chances are pretty good it's going to be in between. How come? Because ace, 2, king is it, right? You win your money back. Yeah. Now, I don't mean that the third card is physically in between. You guys know that, right? Like the 7 wins because it's between 3 and queen, right? Okay, who wants to try the next one? All right, Nick. You get 2 cards. You get an 8 and 10.
I bet.
How much you gonna bet?
I don't think it's going to be.
Yeah, you're not gonna win, are you?
Well, I would get $20.
Okay, 20 imaginary dollars. Yeah, sorry, man, you lose.
I win $20.
Yeah. Okay. Now maybe the game should change. Maybe you should make your bet before you see the cards. right? What would make this game better? Maybe if you've got two numbers that are really close together like this, and the next one is in between, maybe you should win more. Like maybe if the difference between these two is small, it means that you win more. So if you bet and it is in between, then you win more. That's a possibility. Okay, let's try round 3. Who's up? Okay, Christian with a K. Now, why do I have this over here, do you think? Because Christian's got a match. So now he's not playing in between anymore. Now he's playing higher or lower. So is the next card going to be higher or lower? Lower. You're going to go lower?
Yeah, I'll be
You guys are bad at this game. Good thing you're playing with imaginary money. Okay, last round. All right, Connor.
Yeah, you're beating us again.
Okay, higher or lower, Connor? Oh, guess what? We got a match, so you got to go higher or lower. Pardon me? He says lower, that's good strategy, but I happen to know what the card is. Oh. Are there any, and maybe that's a thing we need to add, is that you can bet that it is going to be the same too, right? Why is Nolan texting right now, do you think? Or is he just looking at a paper? Yeah. Okay. Here's how the game would look in Liberty Basic. Now, is this going to work for me? Okay, let's have a look here. So, what's the first thing you need to do? Travis, you need to get those earbuds up so you can hear me. What's the first thing you should do? Print the instructions. The game starts by printing instructions. The game begins by printing instructions. Then you have to get the person's bankroll. Get the bankroll. That would be an input statement, right? Then what? Then you got to determine the ante. There's 3 things you got to do before you do the cards. That's why you got to plan. Then determine if to play or not. Because what if the person put in $0 for their bankroll? You got to account for that. You have to think about all the possibilities. Okay, now why did I show the next one over here sort of indented, do you think? It's inside the loop. Now Scratch does that bracket thing. In Liberty Basic, we have a real hard time with that kind of stuff, and so did you notice how I did that? With this indentation stuff. Really, really important. Okay, my next step, subtract the ante and print the new bankroll. One more step even before 2 cards. Now, pick cards and print. You could have that as 2 steps. Pick cards, print cards. That could be 2 steps. Determine, why do you need to determine which one's bigger and which one is the smaller one? When we played it here, when I played it back here, you'll notice that when I built this, I automatically put the small one on the left and the queen there. But what if it was this way? What if the queen was over here and the 3 was there? Could you mentally figure out whether the next card is in between? Well, of course you could. Because you're a human, you have common sense. Computers don't have common sense. The first one is not always going to be the smaller one. So you actually have to figure out, before you can figure out if they're in between or not, you have to figure out which one is the smaller of those 2, and which one's the bigger. I'm guessing nobody here thought of that. Then determine which game you're playing. Are we playing in between because they don't match? Or if they do match, then you have to play the higher or lower game. Lots of steps. Then you either play in between or play higher or lower, depending on which one is the situation. And then ask to play again. Okay? You also need to check to see if the bankroll is 0, because if they bust, then they can't play anymore, right? And then you end your loop. Now, is there anything new here? What have we got? We got printing, we've got loops, we've got random number generator, we got an if statement, and we've got ask a question. These are exactly the same things that were on the previous game. It's just a bigger game. It's got more features. Okay? Could we break this pseudocode down even to smaller steps? Is there some statement in here that's going to be more than one step? Which one, Dakota? You're right. There's two. There's two here that are the play ones, exactly. We probably need to take those two bits and actually do what? Write pseudocode for them. This is where a software manager would say, okay, Mitchell, you go and you make this code. Alex, you go and make this code. And Nolan, you're going to worry about how those codes fit together with the big project. That's how it works. How do we play in between? Here's pseudocode for in between. Get the bet, check if it's greater than the bankroll, pick the third card and print it. If it's in between, print win and add bet to bankroll. If it's outside, print lose and subtract bet. If it's a match, print lose and subtract double. And here's the pseudocode for high-low game. Remember all this stuff?
Yeah, I did that.
Attaboy. Okay? Lots of steps here. Okay. Did anybody jot down what variables you're going to need? Well done, Nick. Bankroll. Well done, Mitchell. Ante. What do you think's next?
Print.
That's not a variable.
Number of cards.
Number of cards? Oh, the number on the card. Like bet. Card 1. Card 2. Card 3. It's longer because I need a bigger box to cover it up. Something you have to store. What round are we playing? It's like being on a game show. Yeah. Okay, there's likely 2 or 3 other variables that are more structural in nature that you're not actually going to see, the user's not going to see, but they're actually going to be needed. Okay, so these are things we're going to look at. These are long-term goals kind of thing, even into grade 11 and 12. We might, rather than make this a text-based game, it might be window-based, where you actually create a window and you play. It could use an actual deck of cards, where there's only 4 kings. You could have shuffling in there as well. There could be sound, there could be graphics. You could actually make it not a bad game. You could have a little guy in a bow tie pretending to be a dealer. You could have it online, where you actually pay real money to play. We don't want that. Okay, so every lesson when there's a project part, Lance, every lesson where there's a project part, I'm going to give you a slide like this and say, this is the project part, okay? So what I want you to do when I tell you to, I want you to go to a computer, start a program called InBetween, have the program print out the instructions. Now, I could just give you the instructions and you can copy and paste them in, but by making you type them in, what am I doing? Besides aggravating you. Learning exactly what the rules are, right? Okay, so I want you to today, I want you to write a program called InBetween. All it does is print out the instructions, and I want you to save it as InBetween V1. Then I want you to use an input to get the player's bankroll and determine the ante. 1% of the bankroll, save that as InBetween V2. Okay? We're going to have different versions. The reason we do this is if you screw up on version 4, you always have version 3 to go back to. It's a very good system to get used to doing. Continue saving it with a new name, with a version number on it, so you know what the current one you're working on is, and you have backups that you can go back to. Okay, so that's the rest of the period. I want you to get a laptop, print out the instructions, and then do the input, and you should have 2 things called InBetween at the end of the day.